start with the free stuff, right? HubSpot, all of its software starts at free. All of our education starts at free. Why? Because when you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of money, right? HubSpot has $1 billion on our balance sheet, right? You can look at our 10K, right? We want to make sure that we're helping people get started. Number two, identify your ideal customer profile. In the old days, which by the way is 2018, before you were starting your podcast, right? In the old days, you could be a generalist and it was okay. Today, the riches are in the niches. Or as we say in Europe, if you want to go to the beaches, you've got to work the niches.
This is another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast. My guest today is the infamous Dan Tyre of HubSpot fame. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And this is your best podcast episode, right? Not that I'm like egotistical or anything, but we've been talking for 15 minutes.
Have
just
we?
Briefing stuff.
Oh my God, we have.
Hockey. We've been talking people we know. We've been talking about Gary Vaynerchuk, by the way. He's an awesome dude and has done me favors.
Little John Lee Dumas, the HubSpot Podcast Network.
Oh my goodness, right? We didn't even record, right? But we told your audience, or we're telling your audience, we're going to be relatively concise, right? We're going to do 20 minutes today on anything you want to go, right? And I'm going to give you the goods, right? I'm mildly entertaining from the stage, right? I know that I do this a fair amount of time. I am a huge fan of HubSpot as an early employee, right? I just celebrated my 14th anniversary. Did I tell you that?
Congratulations. That's amazing.
I know. First of all, I get 1,000 people on LinkedIn sending me the canned congratulations on your work anniversary.
Of course, yeah.
Which is a little bit annoying, but I try to respond to each one personalized because we're all about personalization and customization.
You need a bot back.
Well, no, I can't do that. If they take the time to thank me for my work anniversary, at least they're watching, right? And I want to blow them away, right? And HubSpot's all about delighting our customers. So I'm going to say, all right, even if they have a name that's hard to spell, I'm going to type it out on my keyboard. I'm going to say, thank you very much. And then I don't know if you know this about me, Michael. I'm a fist bumper. Did you know I've been a fist
I did not
bumper?
know that because I'm virtually...
I know. You and I have never met, which is so 2020, right? Now we're in 2021. But when was the first time you saw a fist bump in a business context?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I know. I had never seen it until Barack Obama fist bumped his wife, Michelle, in the first time he was elected, right? On stage, right? Yeah. He's in a suit and a tie, and he's a Harvard guy, and he came over and I'm like, that is awesome. So at the time, I had a job at HubSpot where I was in charge of 120 millennials, right? They were all 22 to 24 years old. So I just started being a goofball. I'm like, okay, I'm going to fist bump you. And I started doing it. And, it was crazy. People just thought it was the greatest thing ever to see an old guy like fist bump. So it ran like 2 weeks, and then I'm like, okay, I'm over it. And they're like, no, that fist bump is yours.
It's
and I'm
forever
like,
no, Dan.
It's not really. So, but they rioted. They're like, no, you're a fist bump guy. Stay with it. So I've stayed with it my whole career. I've been fist bumping for 10 years, right? And it's like there's all kinds of great attributes to it. Number one, less germs. Number two, it's distinctive. Number three, it's a fun thing to talk about. There's lots of YouTube videos of the iterations. There's 45 iterations of the fist bump.
For sure.
Right?
There's many more than that, probably.
400.
I'm thinking of my own in my
whole
head.
Podcast. Right. If you give me a day and a half, we'll there's the
art of the fist bump.
Then I moved on to elbow taps.
I'm not a fan. I got to be honest.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, you got to roll with it.
I'd rather bow to you than give you an elbow tap. All right, so for people that don't know, who is Dan Tyre?
Oh, my goodness. Everybody knows who I am. No, I'm only kidding. Number one, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Let's get that out right in the beginning. I've been married for 33 years to the beautiful Amy Tyre, right? She's the smart Tyre. She's the one who actually thinks I'm basically a 9-year-old, right? I've done 5 startups in the last 43 years. Right. My first startup in 1980, before all your listeners were born, was a computer hardware startup that went from $3 million to $1.4 billion. It was called Business Land. It's actually pretty fun. Right. I went to school in upstate New York. I was a bass player in a heavy metal rock and roll band. I had better hair than you, which is saying something, Michael, because you got some serious hair. And we talked about that yesterday. And I was a bass player on the road for about 6 months. And then I decided to get like a serious job because I couldn't buy a pair of sneakers. So I started working at selling computers. I went into a computer reseller, which is the way you sold computers in 1982. You went into a store, kind of like Best Buy. You plopped down 15 grand for a computer, and you walked out with something that had like 10 megabytes of hard disk storage.
Oh, you had that much?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing.
Disk drives.
Exactly, disk drives. None of our audience knows what the hell you're talking about. They're like, what? Huh? Oh, yeah. My grandfather had one of those. Anyway, that company, Businessland, went, my boss, this is what happened. I was like a top-rated salesperson selling Apple IIes and Apple IIIs for this company called The Computer Store. And my boss, Roger, comes to me one day. He's like, I'm leaving. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm going to a startup. I'm like, what's a startup? He goes, it's a small company that's going to grow very quickly. I'm like, all right, have a good time. He's like, no, I want you to come with me. I'm like, I got a job. He's like, I'll pay you $1,500 more a year. I'm like, yeah, I'm a startup guy. Let's go. So I jumped from this company over to this company, Businessland. And it IPO'd in 1982. It was like $3 million. Over the next 10 years, it went to $1.4 billion. When $1 billion was real money. Right. And I started in Framingham, and then I went to Boston, and then I went to LA and San Francisco. And then my last responsibility was in New York City. And I was their turnaround expert. I would take underperforming divisions of Businessland and make them profitable. And it was super fun, super fast paced. And I got addicted to hypergrowth. So after 10 years, I quit. I started my own business. I was founder and CEO of Automated Labor Incorporated. What do you think of that name, Automated Labor Incorporated?
I mean, that might almost fit this podcast.
That's true. People had no idea what the hell that was. They're like,
still don't know what it is. What is it?
I know. It's because it's indecipherable, right? It turns out Automated Labor could be the worst name of any company. They're like, are you a robotics firm? Are you a temporary firm? I was thinking, like, what
That's
does
kind of
everybody
what you guessed, yeah.
Automated Labor. And the reality is I had to shorten it to ALI.com or ALI Technologies because no one knew what the hell was. Anyway, ALI grew from 0 to $8 million over 5 years. Then I sold it to a Phoenix-based company. The combined company InfoImage grew to $30 million over 10 years. So I'd done it a second time, and I loved it, right? ALI InfoImage, great people. It was built around Lotus Notes. It was collaborative technologies. And we were the largest Lotus Notes professional services company in North America. It was super fun. Then I took their training division, and I ran it successfully for 2 years, but then we hit a rough patch, and I had to bring it into bankruptcy, right? So my third startup went into receivership, which at the time was devastating, right? I'm a hyper-growth guy, and I had to put a company into bankruptcy. It's hard. But I learned a ton about myself, about resiliency, about how to put a company into bankruptcy, and I've helped like dozens of people since then, right, deal with that like challenge of doing it. But then my fourth startup got bought out by Microsoft. And my boss in that one was this guy, Brian Halligan. And when Microsoft bought out Groove Networks, right, Brian went to MIT, Sloan School, and met Dharmesh. I worked for Microsoft for about a year. And when Brian and Dharmesh started HubSpot, they called me up. Like, talk about lucky. Brian like calls me. He goes, you're a good startup guy. You got incredible energy. You're a great salesperson, which is important because our software doesn't work that well. And we want you to join the team. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And so I was early.
Like a pitch to me. It's like, hey, our software sucks. You should come work for us.
I still have the email. I just saw it the other day. Brian is on a leave of absence because he was in a snowmobile accident.
Oh, no.
He left. It happened like 5 months ago. He left Yamini Rangan, our chief customer officer in charge, and we haven't missed a beat, right? Brian he's doing great. I saw a picture of him and Dharmesh at a company meeting earlier, right? It's public knowledge. And Brian, turns out, I've known him for 20 years. He's a great vice president of sales. He's a better CEO, right? He is an awesome recruiter. He's always passionate about helping employees and customers. And in the early stages of HubSpot, everybody always wants to know, well, what was happening in the early stages of HubSpot? I remember when there was only 10 of us sitting around a table and having deep discussions of how we could really help people grow, right? And they're like, should we help just our customers? We should help everybody. And Dharmesh Shah, who's the co-founder of HubSpot, is like the Buddha, right? He'd sit there and he'd think. Actually, everybody in the early days of HubSpot would think. They're all delayed processors. I think of the first 10 employees, I was the only non-Sloan School grad. They're all like thoughtful, deep thinkers. We call them delayed processors because you'd ask them a question and they wouldn't say anything for 3 minutes. I'm like, what, did I piss this guy off? Is Dharmesh not like me anymore?
You want some feedback.
Exactly. But they were thinkers. They were all thinking at it. And then I like finish your sentences like I'm doing now. And they'd be like, okay, do you want to think about that for a while? And I'm like, no, I know the answer to that one. And it was amazing, right? My boss when I was hired at HubSpot was this guy, Mark Roberge. And did we talk about Mark? You read his book, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the books I think I've given away the most, which is the Sales Acceleration Formula.
Yeah, me too, right? First of all, it's partly dedicated to me and the other people that started because that's the way it is. In 7 years of working for Mark, I think he was 28 years old when I went to work for him. I was 47.
No way.
Amazing. He had a successful entrepreneur career, and he's like, all right, Tyre, I met him once, and then I listened to him on the phone. And the reason I went to work for HubSpot is I've been a sales guy, a startup guy for my whole career, but it was all face to face. And he's on the phone. And he's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what HubSpot does. Yeah. Oh, no, I can just take your credit card right now. And he took digits over the phone, right? And he wrote them down on a piece of paper, which we never do that now. But it was amazing. I'm like, I want that.
That would not be PCI compliant.
I know. But he was the nicest guy. He was the most empathetic guy. We worked so well together. I did one fight in 7 years, right? He brought us from 0 to $100 million. And then he wrote the book. And then he helped us start our sales motion for our sales products and our CRM. And now he teaches at Harvard Business School. He's a general partner at Stage 2 Capital, which I'm a limited partner. And he does so much good for the universe. He's a great family man. He's got great relationships. I'm just a flat out fanboy, right? I talk to him twice a year. Always great. Anyway, right? He was the brains behind the scale of HubSpot in the early days, right? And there was a handful of things that HubSpot did in the early stages that were good. Number one, we leaned into the culture, right? We wanted to help people. Number two, the business model was pretty innovative, right? The inbound marketing kind of thing, which now inbound is a little bit different, but inbound marketing at the time was tricking out your website so you could generate leads without having to pay for AdWords, right? And people would always ask me, I would be on the phone. I cold called for HubSpot. Don't tell anybody, right? But I would get on the phone. We didn't have these inbound leads, right? So I'd have to call people and they go, what is inbound? And I'm like, it's tricking out your website so that you can generate more leads and customers, right? And they're like, okay, and does it work? And I'm like, well, we have 13 customers. I think so. Right now in 2021, we have 115,000 customers. We know not only does it work, but we know it's a competitive advantage, right? But at the time, right, we would have to answer these questions. It's very, very innovative. Number three, we always executed, right? We went our first 27 months. I think I have this right. The first 27, we never missed our number. And so isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Right? It was hard work. Right? It was like Saturdays and Sundays. It was 80 hours a week, which my beautiful wife understood because it was my fifth startup. It was, I was doing a part of it from Arizona and part of it in Boston. It was whatever you take, whatever it took to hit your number. The next one, we had access to capital because of that execution. People like General Catalyst and Matrix Partners and the greatest VCs in the world came to us and we came to them and said, yeah, we want to invest in the scale up of this business. We always leaned into great managers. We always leaned into culture, right? We leaned into execution and we leaned into helping people. The core underlying value of HubSpot was always its culture to build this tribe. And even if people didn't really like our technology, they're like, I like what you guys are doing. And that has morphed over the last 15 years to the way we sell is more important than technology. Now we have world-class technology.
Yeah, it's very good. It's made, I think you guys, for people that don't know, HubSpot started out more as probably one of the first marketing automation platforms. Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, it is. And we kind of invented or the spiritual leader of inbound. And what inbound is that you treat people like human beings. Which in 2021, you've got to remind your audience, right? We're all in this together, right? We all have the common DNA. It's not Democrats, Republicans. It's not like rich people and poor people. It's like we're all human beings. Just remember, we're on the planet together. Let's work it out somehow, right? This inbound emotion is also about helping before you sell. Right. So we took that very seriously. You and I were talking about all the free stuff that HubSpot gives away. Just Google HubSpot free stuff.
Tons.
There's a million things. We have marketing statistics, industry data. We have the HubSpot Academy, right? In 2021, my job is to help grow HubSpot Academy, make it scalable for 100,000 folks, right? And Courtney and Matt Barbie and Scott Wilder, all these great, like, smart people working very, very hard to try to help people first. And then what happens, it turns out that's a great business model. The more people you help, the more people are on board. Even if you'd never heard the term inbound, people are like, yeah, that's the way I've always done it. I just want to help people. And some people will buy from me, some people won't. Dharmesh is famous for saying, if you want to make $1 million, help 1 million people, ask them for $1. And I'm like, okay, I'm stealing that, Dharmesh. He goes, you don't have to. I said that, and it's true, right? And then you solve for the customer, which is not always easy. Right? You meet the customer where they are. You find out where they are in the process, and just awareness or consideration and decision, right? The hardest part is if you're not a good fit and you're like, okay, you're better off going to one of our competitors. You're better off going to Zoho or to Salesforce or somebody like that because you need HIPAA compliance or something like that. We don't do that. And that was innovative at the time because salespeople back in the old days, right, they'd do anything to get the deal, right? And it was buyer beware. Today, it's seller beware. Today, all of our sales teams know is customer experience is the ultimate differentiator. Today, it's not what you sell, it's how you sell. That's a Halligan quote, right? And the way you engage, the way you help, the way you lead with assistance, right? And then when people move more into a consideration phase, then if you've helped them, they'll remember it, number one. Number two, then they'll think of you in a favorable light. Number three, you have a better opportunity of potentially serving them with a technology solution or a business solution to help them grow better. Isn't that amazing?
I think in one of the toughest things that I find, even myself, because I probably come from more of a channel or a business development or a direct sales background.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that people have a challenge with on inbound is the first steps. So how would you advise like an early stage company or someone that's starting with maybe their first sales process to, because I think there is this, first of all, going direct to someone without knowing them and having any sort of trust is challenging.
Yeah.
How would you advise them to begin their inbound journey as a business?
Awesome question. So very good. So first of all, start with the free stuff, right? HubSpot, all of its software starts at free. All of our education starts at free. Why? Because when you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of money, right? HubSpot has $1 billion on our balance sheet, right? You can look at our 10K, right? We want to make sure that we're helping people get started. Number two, identify your ideal customer profile. In the old days, which, by the way, is 2018, before you were starting your podcast, right? In the old days, you could be a generalist and it was okay. Today, the riches are in the niches. Or as we say in Europe, if you want to go to the beaches, you've got to work the niches, right? And today, when you're looking for a podcast guest, you know exactly what you want. You want something specific that encourages your audience, that is going to be concise, and so, right, you reverse engineer. You can always be opportunistic, right? But you want to understand where you do your best work, where you understand the vocabulary, where your network is aligned, and you want to build a profile of that's where I do my best work. Sometimes it's the startup phase. Sometimes it's nonprofit. Sometimes it's manufacturing in Paris. Sometimes it's, transportation companies in Uganda. All of those things, right, are specific niches. But as you work through those, now you're going to understand, I know that business. I know how to help that business. I know that I have referenceable customers in that business, and I know that that's where I'm going to do my best work. After you get your ideal customer profile, by the way, just Google Ultimate Guide to Ideal Customer Profile HubSpot. You'll see a free guide of how to do it, right? Then you go to personas, right? And are you familiar with the term personas, Michael?
For sure.
Okay, and personas are very important. I never heard of personas before 2007 at HubSpot. And our first CMO, Mike Volpe, is like, no. It's all about understanding what people really want. And in today's complex world, the chief revenue officer wants something different than the chief marketing officer that wants something different than the vice president of finance. And so understanding their goals, wants, and dreams, understanding the best way to to talk with them, to converse, right? Figuring out those personas. By the way, HubSpot has a free tool called Make My Persona, right? So Google that one and you'll see it's like 8 steps, and you build an avatar for a persona. Then you trick out your website, right? The number one thing that I see on people's website is they don't have what's called a top of the funnel offer. And have you ever heard that term?
I've heard of it, but what do you mean by it?
When I come to your website, I need to know that you're all about senior executives at billion-dollar software companies and helping me get more speaking engagements. Or I need to see in the first 30 seconds, you understand who I am, even though I've never been to your website before, that that you are trying to encourage me to do business with you. And number 3, that you're going to give me something free. It could be a checklist for being concise on your next podcast, which some of your listeners are like, yeah, I wish Michael had that on his website before he started interviewing you. It could be something. It could be something like raising your speaking fees. It could be something like how to get more people to watch your podcast. It's a variety of different things. But that download, when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's what I was looking for. It can be short. You could write it in 30 minutes, right? It's what you do every single day, but you're putting it out there, usually behind a squeeze page. You're going to also post lots of free content on your blog, right? That's good for SEO. That's good for people finding you. But like the top of the funnel offer is something that I'm going to drop my contact information. Now you have an email address where you can professionally personalize and customize, connect with me, and to see where I am in the process and how much help that I need, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, when I come to the website, you should have a call to action that says a 15 or 20-minute consultation with a inbound expert, whatever you're expert in. It doesn't have to be inbound, or a podcast expert or a nonprofit expert, something like that. In the old days, everybody I talked to has a contact us page, right? No one wants to contact you. It's 2021. What I want is a 15-minute consultation with you, right? So you can tell me all the great stuff that I learned in the briefing meeting. You could tell me how you deal with startup companies, how you scale their RevOps, how you get all of the information together, how you do all that alignment, right? And that's worth 15 minutes. In some industries, it's like 40. In some, it's 20. And some it's 15. But if you get a chance to talk with them, right, you'll have a much better opportunity to find out a little bit more about them, to ask some certain questions, and they'll be like, oh my goodness, this guy is awesome. All right, we need to take it to the next level. In that first 15 minutes, right, you don't qualify them. You cycle in and you're like, all right, how can I be of service? And they're like, excuse me? You're like, you signed up for a 20-minute consultation, right? I've done the research. Now, this is key. This is 2021. You got to know who the company is. You got to know who the person is, which take you 5 minutes on a Google search or on LinkedIn. And you're like, what I saw is you live in Arizona. What I saw you've done is 5 startups. What I've seen is you just celebrated your 14th year anniversary at HubSpot. That's amazing, right? And now I'm thinking, wow, I like this guy, Michael. Not only does he have good hair and root for the Red Wings, right? But he is done his research. And then you're like, okay, Tyre, usually people in this ideal customer profile with this persona are looking for this kind of challenge, right? And I'm like, wow, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And then you're going to stroke your chin and you're going to say, all right, tell me about that. And you're going to get me talking about my biggest challenges, right? Connect call is not about qualifying. It's about having a conversation to determine, number 1, did you do enough research? Number 2, what do I really need? And number 3, you might give me some recommendations of ways you can help, right? Most likely you'll be like, okay, right? I've seen this before. I did this for this company in St. Louis. I did this company in Newport Beach. I know about this company. And I'm like, okay, you are the real deal, Michael D. I want to talk with you. And then you're like, great, I need to do a little bit more research. I'm going to move to a discovery or an exploratory call. That's 45 or 50 minutes. But I already know I want to talk to you, right? I knew it after you did the research. I knew it as soon as you said, this is how we do our best work, right? But you're gonna do a little bit more research. You're going to dig into some things, and you're going to spend some time to understand if I'm just in awareness phase and you just want to stop it at that, or I have an active problem. Right? In the discovery phase, you're going to dig in. You're going to make sure that I know what my problem is, because you're the expert who solved it dozens of times. I may think I know what the problem is, but I don't really know what the problem is, right? My speaking fees may not be the problem. It may be that I don't have enough social media followers, or I'm not doing enough promotion, or I'm not driving my podcast the way I should, right? And you'll pick up on that immediately. And I'm like, okay, we got to dig into the next level. Once I do that exploratory call, then you can qualify, then you can determine, okay, you'd be a good client for us, right? Let's determine if now is the right time to work together, and the rest of the sales process rolls out because you were so effective in the connect call. Now, if you run out of people who come to your website, or if it takes a little time to do it, you can pick up the phone, right? You can do the research and you say, Dan, I did research on software executives in Arizona that have this problem, and I thought I'd pick up the phone and I'd connect with you, right? And has anybody ever picked up the phone, Michael, and offered 15 minutes to help you generate more business?
They might have. I don't know if I listened to them though. But.
Yeah. So that is just a great point. So you have to call them 4 times.
Research, by the way, that's
I know.
Like saying, hey, it's funny you said that, because I was mentioning to you before that we have a new intern and she's really eager about diving into the HubSpot education. And we came up with something that's actually, you're validating it, which is, listen, let's just use your role as a way to research and find out about the people we want to connect with. So I feel like you emailed it with me yesterday or something. I didn't get that from yesterday, but I guess I anticipated it. But
the thing is, it's different in 2021, right? Based on a global pandemic, all of the trends have been accelerated and accentuated, and no one wants to get sold, right? No one needs a pushy salesperson saying dopey stuff to you to try to push along, because you'll just ghost them.
You see,
right? In the old days, this is a great statistic that I got from HubSpot Stats. In the old days, the average company had 6 competitors. How many competitors do you think the average company has in 2019?
Oh my God, I don't know, 20?
44. So in the old days, you're like, okay, Michael's okay. He's kind of a pain in the butt. He talks a lot, but I don't want to change. Today, you got 43 other people calling you. And if they're calling you at the right time and offering you help.
Right.
Exactly. So that's the HubSpot flywheel, right? Just Google HubSpot flywheel. We want to make sure that you bear hug your customers. We want to make sure that you pick the right customers, because in the old days, if I made a decision, if I sold a bad deal, right, you called my boss and he'd call me in the office and he'd say, Tyre, don't do that again. And I'd walk out and do it a million more times. Today, you're on Twitter and Instagram going, no.
Everybody's got a bullhorn.
Exactly. You're on LinkedIn. It happens 10 times a week. People are like, okay, that was a great sales process, or that wasn't what we agreed to. And now your reputation is horrible, right? And in 2021, you can't do that. So you want to make sure that you're working with people you do your best work. You want to make sure that you're always honest and above board. You're always make sure that it's a good fit, right? Because it's seller beware. Because if I bring you on as a customer, it's not a good fit. That's why starting with the free stuff makes so much sense, because you get to try it. You're either like, yeah, this is good, but it's not big enough. I need some more functionality. I was talking to my friend Barbara Greenberg this morning. She's like, but I need some more functionality. I'm like, you got to upgrade to a different product. She's like, well, okay. I'm like, just study, make sure you know what your needs are, call your HubSpot rep, and we'll work whatever you need so that you can get the more advanced product. But she's making that decision. Not a pushy salesperson. She's like, this is what I need. She already knows. And that self-service motion, that upgrade motion is so much easier, less expensive, beneficial to everybody involved. The role of a salesperson is totally different now. It used to be, I took you to golf or bought you a cheeseburger and convinced you that you should go. I'm not going to convince you of anything, right? I'm not going to convince your wife of anything. I'm going to give you all the information. I'm going to tell you. You're a smart guy. You can make the decision, right? This is all the information. And the other thing I'm going to do is give you references at the very beginning, right? I'm like, you know what? My friend Amy, she just went through this, right? Why don't you talk with Amy? I'm going to send you Amy's email. Just have a 15-minute conversation with Amy. And Amy is going to explain to you what worked, what didn't work, what she wished she knew at the beginning of the process. And you're going to be like, Tyre, that was great. I'm like, you want another one? And you're like, you'll team me up with, like, this is the way it works in 2020. It's not what you sell. It's not the technology. It's how you sell. And everybody in 2021 wants a little bit of help to make sure they're making the right decision so that they're efficient. So when they move to the decision-making process, they're comfortable that the purchase of the product and then the implementation of the product meets their requirements.
A long time ago, I wrote a little book that I never published called The Natural Sales Process. And I think what you're saying is what's in that, which is people buy from people they trust, and the people they trust are experts. And they see through manipulative tactics.
Yeah.
And now
that has always been true.
Right? It's like amplified.
100%.
I love
that
it.
that has always been true, Michael. The problem was in 2003, you didn't have a choice.
You could hide.
If you needed to know whether it fitted in the back of your truck or it came in purple or how much it cost, you had to talk to me.
Right.
And I was steeped in solution-oriented selling, which well, I would say, hey, Michael, is this a priority for you? Which is offensive. If I said that to you today, you'd be like, excuse me, right? If I said that to your wife, do you have to get your customer or your husband involved in that? She would walk out the door. She would blast me up. No, she's nice, but it'd be horrendous, right? In 2021, it's different because you're a empowered buyer. I just did a show in France for my buddy Kareem from the Nile agency, a HubSpot agency partner. I had to get up at 4:00 in the morning and speak French and be funny at 4:00 in the morning, which was a challenge even for me. And we talked about the empowered buyer and how the role of the salesperson isn't just to tell you what it costs and how it works or do you want a discount. The role is, number one, to listen. The number one attribute that people want in their salespeople is the ability to listen, to understand, yes, you are at the right phase. You are thinking about it the right way. Or have you ever thought of it this way? Because you may not be solving the right problem. And lots of people say, I need a CRM. And you're like, okay, why? And they're like, I don't know. I just need a CRM. I'm like, okay, if you have this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem, if you you're in spreadsheets and you can't keep track of your customer relationships, if you don't have your sales profiles linked up with your marketing profiles, if you can't keep track of your lead intelligence, if you don't have lead notifications, if you don't have a meetings tool, exactly, you need a CRM. We have a modern CRM. Oh, by the way, it starts at free. Right. And you're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah. And like, just get started that way. But now I've added value, not by telling you I have free software, but by advising you about what problems that you would probably solve and whether this is a good time. You're still the decision maker. So you get to decide whether you go now or you delay a little bit. And now in 2021, we get this really interesting dynamic where people get all excited. Right? They'll be on the website 67 pages. They'll call up the salesperson 3 or 4 times. What's this? What's that? And then they'll ghost you for like 4 months, right? They will not do anything for 4 months because their boss comes into their cubicle and says, all right, forget about the CRM. We need to move to marketing software, right? And they'll do a completely different sales motion on something different until 4 months later when they come back and they're like, your boss is like, okay, you got to get that CRM going again. And you're like, damn. If you call back that person, if they were good in the process, you're like, I got to call that guy Dan. He's a little loud and I couldn't understand half the things that he was saying because he talked so quick, right? But he did give me some helpful information. You cycle back in and you go, Dan, this is Michael. I'm like, oh, yeah, Michael, didn't we talk in like February? And I go back into my CRM, I see all of the notes that we had. I'm like, yeah, like for 3 days, you and I were like constantly going back and forth. You asked some really good questions. You're like, yes, you remember that? I'm like, it's all in my CRM. I got every call. I got every email. I got all the great questions you asked. What's up, Michael? You're like, okay, that's impressive. I need to do that with my customers. And then we can take it from there.
Love it. That is like the fire hose perfect answer on top of everything else.
Oh my goodness. I know. I knew we were going to have a good podcast. I don't want to go too long. You can invite me back for my second one.
You're always welcome to come back, Dan. I really appreciate you jumping on. I want to be conscious of your time, of course, though. So let's wrap with a few quick things. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you think is important for people that?
If people don't understand the inbound philosophy, I don't care what you call it. What did you call your little book?
It's Automate and Grow. It's like the podcast.
Okay. And so that's your book, but you said you were going to buy another book, write another book called The Human Sales Process.
Oh, well, a book I wrote before that was called The Natural Sales Process.
The Natural Sales Process. All right. Do you know Daniel Pink, the author who wrote To Sell is Human? He's a HubSpot advisor. He's an incredible guy, right? You should interview him.
He's got a great masterclass, I think.
Yeah, the guy's amazing. I'm jealous because I'm a sales guy for 42 years. He's a researcher and a writer. He's got a best-selling sales book. Okay. Right? I'm like, how did you do that? He's like, well, it's kind of what I do. And To Sell is Human. You had the right thing, right? It's natural. Every minute of every day. Right now, your podcast listeners either click this off because I'm too loud, or they're like, okay, every minute of every day, you're either buying or selling. When you talk to your parents, when you talk to your kids, when you talk to a prospect, when you talk to a podcast listener, and they're either buying into it or they're not. And Daniel Pink does such a great job of explaining this is the natural process of being a human being, of being a social animal, right? And so I advise that a book all the time, right? Also, I wrote a book called The Inbound Organization with my buddy, Todd Hockenberry. And Todd is the best co-author in the history of books, right? He's a big guy. He holds 3 patents. He's a super smart guy. He lives in Florida. He's a NASCAR fan. And like he did a lot of the research for the book. We interviewed all of the senior executives at HubSpot. It was
perfect.
It was amazing, called Inbound Organization. If you go to the inboundorganization.com website, you'll see all this free stuff, right? There's 24 podcasts that we did, and there's all the chapters and all the assessments and things like that. Amazing. You can get it on Amazon.
Yep.
In fact, Jeff
We'll put that in the
Bezos,
show notes.
he discounted my book to $10, right? I'm not excited about that, right? Jeff, you should at least ask me or my publisher can I discount it to $10, but I guess Jeff can do whatever the heck he wants.
Is he subsidizing or discounting?
I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We want to get this information out to the world, right? If somebody doesn't quite get what we're talking about, just buy them the book, hand them the book. It's 100 and 200 and something pages that talks about this natural motion of the 6 components of being an inbound organization. And I always tell everybody I had a great entrepreneur career, but everything changed when I joined HubSpot in 2007 because the passion and the heart and the soul moved to the forefront. Exactly what you said, right? Helping people is more important than selling to people. And we have great technology. We have great support. We have an unbelievable partner channel. We have thousands of partners in 120 countries worldwide, right, that understand the integrations and how to set up your HubSpot and technology and really make it sing for you. But the whole idea and the foundation is going to be different in 2021, right? World-class companies are going to be socially responsible, going to really care about their employees, going to really care about their customers, right? And it's a winning formula in 2021.
I love it. Normally we wrap with 3 questions. I'm going to tell you what the questions are, but I think we've covered them. What's one book that we would touch on if we want to? It's the
Inbound Organization is the one I wrote with Todd Hockenberry. Yeah. The other one I like is Bounce. Have you ever heard of Bounce by Matthew Syed?
You know what? I have not read that yet.
Okay. I read it on vacation a year ago, and it's influence. You know how some people like Tiger Woods, you think, oh, Tiger was born with that golf stroke, of course. Yeah. It turns out this guy is a world-class table tennis player. And he draws this comparison because he comes from a small town in the UK, and there were multiple world-class table tennis players there. What? And he makes the argument that it's not your natural ability, that's just not true. It's how much you practice. And it's true, when you go back into Tiger Woods, he was like sinking putts when he was 3, right? And Serena Williams, right? She was practicing when she was like 5, right? She just hit more forehands and backhands than anyone else, right? So it's a great and a beautiful book about how anybody can do anything if they put in the time. I
love it. The final thing is that we usually ask interesting people who are on the podcast to nominate other interesting people.
Okay, you got Daniel Pink, you got Mark Roberge, right? You got Katie Burke. You got to get Katie Burke on here, the Chief People Officer. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my friend Katie Burke, who revolutionized the HubSpot culture, right? Who lives, it's Pride Month, which I actively participate in, as many HubSpotters do, because we want the best people to come to HubSpot, be their authentic self. It's amazing to me that in 2021, this is even a thing, right? We love everybody. We want everybody to come in, feel comfortable about trans, gay, whatever you feel the most appropriate to be, right? That's how we get the best people in the world.
Right?
HubSpot has 3 women on our board of directors, including my friend Lori Norrington. Yeah, we have 2 people of color on our board of directors. Dharmesh is
he's Indian, isn't he? Or is he?
Second generation co-founder of HubSpot, and it's just, we got to lead, right? And people can take action now, and there's plenty of folks who are available, right? If you need help, dtyre@hubspot.com. I can turn you on to Girls in Tech, or lots of people that I know, because myself and HubSpot, we're an anti-racist company. Every single HubSpot employee has to take anti-racism training, and I took it. It's 35 minutes. I cried through the whole thing. It's so beautiful.
Dan.
It's amazing. I cry a lot, I know, but it was so empowering, and I felt so like this is essential, right? Brian Halligan and Andrew Lindsay, who's a senior vice president, runs our a capital organization, right? All of these great people were really leaning in to make a difference, right? And that's how you make a dent in the universe. That's why at 63 years old, I want to spend all my time helping your podcast listeners, helping our HubSpot customers and prospects, and helping everybody in the world grow better.
Dan, I love it. I appreciate your time today and all your energy. We accept those 3 amazing nominations. I'm absolutely going to follow up with you on all 3 of them. And if you have any more, I'm happy to talk to them. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right, Michael D., that was super fun, and hope you get to do your podcast again sometime in the future.
You are welcome to come back anytime. This has been another episode of the Automate and Grow podcast, and we will see you on our future episode, hopefully with Daniel Pink, Mark Roberge, and or Katie Burke, and maybe even her dad, Brian Burke.
Boom! DanTyre.com if you have questions. DTyre at HubSpot if you want to connect with me. Thank you very much.
And it's Tyre with a Y, right?
Tyre with a Y. Yeah, DTYRE at HubSpot. Right? Or just go to www.dantyre.com, right? All my contact information is there. My meeting link is there. And like I'm available to anybody who needs help. My mission statement is to help more people in the universe. And I'm at your side.
I love it. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.